Ahoy toy, welcome to Transfixed, the channel that is more than the sum of its parts, and it's also an undead abomination. Well, I just did that last part in because it's getting close to Halloween now. Well, I just got home from dinner at Red Lobster, and now we're going to take a look at the Blue Lobster X Frank. This is a plastic action figure, more than a Transformer really, and he's from that one episode of Transformers G1. That episode, of course, was called Autobot Spike, but really it's Autobot X was the name of the character in the show. It was the first episode of the second season of the Transformers G1 cartoon, and it was just the one episode, just a one-off. But it's strange that we actually are getting two different versions of this figure. I'll get into the character a bit more later. First, we'll just start with the box. It's I haven't heard of this company before, called Blue Lobster. I don't have any information about this company. As far as I can tell, they're new, and their part number is called BL01. So as far as we know, this is the first thing that they've produced. I ordered this from TF Direct for $40 US, and they're already sold out, surprisingly, actually. It is for children aged 30 and up. It says 16, but really, I don't know why. It's just a plastic toy. And there's a few pictures on the back here. Just a turnaround and some shots kind of recreating that episode of the cartoon show. And continuing the seafood theme, he comes in a clamshell package. There's no instructions or anything like that, just the figure. So let's get into it. It is a heavy figure. That was the first thing I noticed about it. It's heavy and solid. It's solid plastic, as far as I can tell. Just various parts glued together and painted. Very accurate to the TV show, I must say. It's quite well done, and the head sculpt is good too, which a lot of times with the third-party companies, they kind of fall down when it comes to facial sculpts. You know, they can do a robot, but they can't do a face for some reason. But this one is really well done. It's even got little metallic eyes in there, and it's pretty cool. It's bigger than I thought, and it's heavier than I thought, and it's a bit less posable than I thought. So he has articulation only from the waist up. So the legs do not move. There's nothing in the hips or waist or knees there. He's going to always be in this sort of hunched over pose, but that is what he looked like in the show. He's got a rotating joint at each shoulder, and his arms go up. This one a bit more than 90, this one a bit less than 90 degrees, and they can go back a little bit if you want them to. That one does not. And he has a head on a ball joint. Now, you can kind of take him apart a little bit. This arm you can pull out to take a look at the joint. It's just got these two squares that are linked together on a swivel. This probably could be pulled out of the arm if you wanted to. It does move, but it's tight. And then on the other side, it seems to be slightly different. You've got just a socket there for this round peg, which is also stuck into the body on a square. And that's what it looks like on the other side. It's just an empty square hole there, which would be the same on that side if this piece came out. So the other pieces don't come apart. Like this rocket here doesn't come off, the shoulder doesn't come off. It's probably glued together as far as I can tell. This hand is on a ball joint, so it swivels around. You could pull that out if you tried really hard, but I don't really want to. And then the gun here does pull out. It's just tabbed in there, so you can take that out if you want to. This arm, I don't think any of these pieces come apart. And the plastic on the joints is quite hard and solid. Plastic on the figure is, it's not rubbery, it's solid. It feels like, I don't know. The only thing I can think of is like a Christmas ornament, like one of those Hallmark figures or something. But, oh, and the head, you can pull it out. There's another square hole there. And then this plugs in like that. And then the head is just on that ball joint, which probably could be taken off. That looks like you could pop it out easily enough. And then the face is a separate piece that's glued in there, I suppose. And likewise with this crest, I think, is glued on, and this looks like it's glued on as well. So I'll put it back in there. Pretty good range of motion on the head. You can give him all kinds of sad poses, which is appropriate. It actually really was quite a sad episode.
Why? Why did you do this to me? Why?
He's out of control again.
Oh, and this door is plugged into the body, but it doesn't look like it comes out. It seems to be glued in place, or at least very firm. And I think this is more than one piece here. This back section looks to be like it's glued in place here. So that's about it for articulation and what it does. So what is it? Like I said, it's from the cartoon. So yeah, it was quite a sad episode. It started out with Sparkplug putting together a bunch of spare parts to see if he could make a new Autobot. And then it just kind of goes berserk and starts trashing the place. So they have to shoot it. And then later on, there's a battle at a rocket launch base, and Spike is riding along in Bumblebee. And as the Decepticons are escaping, they create a distraction by having Soundwave blasting Bumblebee. So Bumblebee and Spike are both wounded. They never actually tell you what is wrong with Spike, but they take him to the hospital, and they say that they wish they could separate his mind from his body because it would help them heal him somehow. So, of course, that's what they do. Wheeljack transfers Spike's consciousness into Autobot X, as he was called. But, of course, the episode's called Autobot Spike because it becomes Spike. And then the Spike struggles thinking straight while he's in this body and gets confused. And then he's watching the Frankenstein movie on Teletran 1, which this episode is obviously based on. Apparently the writer was a big Frankenstein enthusiast, so they do correctly refer to him as a Frankenstein monster, not Frankenstein, and they do all this stuff. He's even got little bolts on the side of his head there, like he does in the cartoon. And so anyway, Spike sees this on the TV, and that really triggers him. He goes berserk, thinking he's a monster. Then he goes away to think about it. Megatron finds him because Laserbeak was spying on him the whole time. And then they convert him over to the Decepticon side for a little while, and then until they talk him down. And they did some kind of operation on Spike. They didn't say what it was. And then they transfer his consciousness back into it. So Autobots have invented the technology to take a person's consciousness out of their brain and replace it again, which means they could transfer consciousness between one human and another human, but of course that's never mentioned again. Oh, look at that. The wheel comes off. There's a little spot of glue there, but it looks like it didn't take, so that comes off. And I was fiddling with this because I feel like this probably comes off too. Oh, Dad! Optimus! So during the show, he has some interesting powers and abilities. He's got thrusters in his feet that let him fly. He's got this cannon here that he shoots, and it also splits open into a grappling hook that he shoots off on a line and pulls somebody up. And he's got this gun up here, of course, and this he doesn't use in the show. Oh, he does shoot a beam out of this headlight, though. So, yeah, interesting set of abilities. Now it's time to play Guess That Body Part. So this is the fun thing. So as this episode says, he's cobbled together from Autobot spare parts that apparently they keep lying around. That's a grim thought, eh? I don't really want to see the room full of dismembered Autobot body parts, but that's what they say he is. So, yeah, this is kind of fun. Let's start with the torso. I think it's easy to identify Prowl here on the right side of his torso. This, as far as I can tell, is Trailbreaker, and it's black and glossy and misshapen a bit. Let's get them in here to see the comparison. So I'll just use the Masterpiece figures and some animation stills. So there's Prowl, and on this side, I think that's got to be Trailbreaker for the chest. I don't have my Classics Hound handy, and of course we don't have the Masterpiece yet, but this is clearly Hound's weapon, and that looks to be the same shape as his shoulder, just unpainted, and his arm, his bicep, upper arm, and shoulder here. I think this is all Hound, and I think Hound is also this left leg too. Based on the wheel and the shape of the leg, the knee is not Hound. The knee is Trailbreaker, but I think the rest of this is Hound. It looks like it. Hound does have a visible wheel on him as well. It could be Brawn, but I think it's more of Hound. Brawn being green, but yeah, I don't think this is the shape of Brawn's leg, and also Brawn doesn't have a visible foot. And so moving back up to the top of the body again, we're here. I think this is Jazz's forearm and hand. I think that's Jazz. And also, he has Jazz's gun, as you can see here. So it makes sense that they just took Jazz's gun and mounted it on Jazz's arm. And over here on the right, we definitely have Sunstreaker's shoulder there. And we have Trailbreaker's arm, obviously, and weapon. So I guess these are the characters that get blown apart. And it's kind of hard to identify his waist here, so I don't really know whose that is. It looks like it's partially Trailbreakers, and I don't know whose else's. Now, the difficult body part to identify is this right leg. Now, I don't know whose it is, but I think it's either made up or it's an amalgamation of different characters. I think this is mostly Optimus Prime's leg, actually. This looks like his leg, and the knee area, and the thigh as well, and even the foot to some extent. And a gas tank on the side here. This is not Optimus Prime's, and the rest of this, like around the foot, doesn't really match. So, and even ignore the color because you can always paint things, right? But I think that this is partly Optimus, or it's just invented whole cloth. This thigh, not sure. I haven't spent a lot of time trying to figure out whose thigh this is. So, you tell me if you have any ideas. And then the head. Now the head is interesting. We definitely have either Prowl or Blue Streak's head. I'm going to say Blue Streak because the crest is different. You can see Prowl does have this horn part, but this part is different. Oops, in the middle here. To me, that looks more like Blue Streak because he's got that square hole. So I think that's Blue Streak's sort of head and face for the most part. Now on this side, I had a hard time figuring out whose head this is on this side. I would say that could be Wheeljack, because he has a ridge there. I don't think it's as prominent though. And would Wheeljack let Sparkplug use his own spare parts? I don't know, I doubt it. Yeah, so this part is a bit of a mystery. I'm not too sure about that. Let me know what you think. And then I think this is just an antenna from Optimus Prime. Oh, and the door, I forgot about the door. This is, I don't know, it's got a definite ridge here and here, like an angle on it. So it's not Jazz, it's probably just supposed to be Prowl. I'm not sure. We don't have any smokescreen parts on here. Or anybody like that. You may be wondering about other characters, but keep in mind this episode was the first of season 2, so we didn't see any of the season 2 Autobots yet. So there was no Inferno, there was no Red Alert, no Smokescreen yet, or any of those characters. Actually, I just noticed the face is different from this side to the other, so that has more of that sort of helmet curve here, and this goes straight down. So I think I mentioned earlier that there is going to be another version of this too. I mean, it looks like X-Transbots is working on their own Autobot X, and they are calling theirs X-Man. But we haven't seen much of it. We've only seen this one prototype photo. Well, set of photos, I should say. There's a few pictures of this one. And I don't think we've seen it since. So, as far as I can tell, it is going to be an action figure. It doesn't look like it transforms into anything. I mean, how could you really transform this into anything? It's such a hodgepodge. But, of course, that one looks like it's better quality. There's lots of articulation built in and all the places you'd expect. And I think it looks like it has some die-cast metal in there as well. So I've got to think that one's going to be more expensive if it does come out. So yeah, a much more quality piece. But I mean, do we want that? I mean, the character is just from one episode. And I think it looks great. I mean, this does look very true to the animation. He looks like he walked right out of the show. So, I'm pretty happy with it. And lastly, just for size comparisons, I mentioned that he's bigger than I expected. It's about the size of the X-Transbots Trailbreaker there, and definitely bigger than the Autobot cars, which I think makes him too big. I didn't get a good sense of how large he was in the show. Actually, he might be that big, because there was one scene where he picked up Sunstreaker and Sideswipe and threw them across the room. But, I don't know, if he's built of car parts, you'd think he'd be a little bit smaller. But if we compare to Masterpiece, yeah, he looks... might be the right size. Maybe, yeah, the head looks too big and the body looks right. Everything else looks a bit large. So, yeah, I don't know. It's up to you whether he'll fit into your collection or not. But, yeah, if you want this character, it's the only option there is right now. So, we'll see if the X-Transbots one ever materializes. But anyway, that's really all there is to say about it. I thought this was going to be a short video because he doesn't do very much. But I wanted to cover everything that I can think of. So there's your Blue Lobster X Frank Autobot X/Autobot Spike. Now, if anybody's watching this far, the other one I picked up recently was this Titanium Saint, who is, of course, an Alpha Trion third-party figure. And don't see a lot of exposure on this guy, so I may do a video on him. Not really sure. Kind of just floating it out there to see if you guys are interested. If anyone is, let me know, please, because I kind of would like some feedback. Whether I do him or not, there will be more stuff coming, so come back and check it out. So from me and from Frank and Lobster here, thanks for watching. It's stamped for this year, made in China. What am I talking about here?